Welcome everyone back to another BOLDcast reaction. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay.
And this is Hunter x Hunter episode 49. What happened last time?
Last time, Gon sold his hunter's license, and then they teamed up with that guy. What was his name again?
Zephyle.
Zephyle.
They hired him.
And yes, they hired him.
To sell their few million, or no, like 300 million. Like a really good
300 million, and then they still had those other things that were worth like, what, like 400 million or something?
No, like a million, like not that much. The treasure inside that thing was worth a shitload of money.
Oh, never mind. But yeah, so he's gonna go off and sell it for them for a price that is yet to be agreed upon.
And they are gonna go meet up with Leorio to track down two members of the Phantom Troupe. And if they can capture, what, 8 of them or something, they can get one copy of Greed Island.
Yeah. Well, I think they said the total would be 14 million
for all of them.
If they got all of them, yeah. And well, we know that
one of them is dead.
One of them's dead, but we know someone who knows where the body is.
True.
And that's a plus.
We'll see what happens this episode. Leave a like and subscribe. Check out Patreon to get uncut reactions a week ahead, maybe more than a week ahead if you go to the uncut tier, some month ahead, sometimes, you know, whatever. That you can see how far ahead we are by going to the description and clicking the link to patreon.com/BOLDcast. Link in the description. Again, leave a like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed most of all. If you're watching on Patreon, we really appreciate your support. You're awesome. Thank you so much. You guys are really sticking with us for the show, and we really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy. Let's go. Nobunaga and Machi.
Every time I see KILLUA's backpack, I always feel like I would be so annoyed by it with all just like the random straps.
I never noticed anything about his backpack.
Has like 6 straps. Pursuit X and X analysis.
Drinking the heinies as well.
Okay, listening to them.
もしもし、遅いわよ。今どこ？キョロキョロすんな。ちゃんと
Yeah, don't be so suspicious.
彼氏の後ろの席のカップルが約束の金を振り込むから確認してくれ。あ、マジ？
Stop being
so suspicious, like a foot away.
ウゴは戻ってこ。今まであいつが連絡なしに遅れたことがあったか。
だがお前も聞いたんだろう。奴は鎖野郎と決着をつけるまで。
だから私もおそらくと言ってるんだ。間違いなくやられたとは言ってない。
勘か？
勘だ。
It's gonna be hard to deal with these guys in broad daylight. And there's 2 of them.
無理だね。俺たちの手に負える相手じゃないよ。
Yeah. After we went through all of that.
親父がさ、仕事で旅団の一人をやってるんだけど。
Couldn't do it.
珍しくぼやいてたんだ。割に合わない仕事だったって。それって標的に対する最大の惨事なんだけど。その時、俺たちに言ったんだよね。旅団には手を出すなって。
Silva said that?
Wow.
そんなに強そう。
あそこにヒソカが2人座ってると考えたら少しはわかるわ。
確かに。手に負えそうもねえかな。
I like they put him in both of his outfits.
Yeah.
追われてる自覚なんかこれっぽっちもない。奴ら見つかるのを待ってる。獲物が引っかかるのを待ってんのさ。狩る気満々だよ。
見られてんな。
素人じゃないね。
ああ、どこかわかんねえが。
But they know they're being watched.
Yeah.
鎖やろうかね。
もしそうなら団長の命令通りやりたいようにやる。
Go wild if you can find
団
them.
長はおそらくそいつを仲間に従ってると思うけど。
マチ。団長は2人で鎖野郎を探し出し、連れてこいとしか言ってねえ。そんなこと
Well, isn't it the rule?
忘れてねえだろ。兵士は問わず、手段は好きに。
I guess, but isn't it the rule that if you kill one of them, you get to take their place?
お前が勝手に団長の意図を解釈するのは構わねえが、それを俺に押し付けんのは。
私はまだ何も言ってない。てめえの意見を押し付けてんのはあんただろ。明らかに空気変わったな。すごい嫌な感
Like
じ。
how they can feel it from there.
大丈夫。
Crazy epic music playing.
Yeah.
絶とかいう気配立ちなんてできねえし。
今ここでんなことしたら逆に不自然だっつうの。
He learned
奴らが
from
今探ってるのはそんな
Castro.
とこじゃない。人間の表情や仕草、視線なんかから違和感を見つけようとしている。だから今の二人の顔やばいよ。もっと自然に朗らかに。ごめん、俺が悪かった。
今
These weirdos.
生かして連れていくか殺して連れていくかはよ。
いいだろう。
表。
裏。
これが
そう、ノストラードの娘で名前はネオ。ハンターサイトの情報に
They're really,
鎖野郎
really
もこの子のボディーガードとして雇われて
checking up on her.
でこの娘のおかげでノストラードは出世を。
多分ね、それもハンターサイトの情報だから間違いないかと。
なるほど。幻影旅団がプロハンター
Oh, at least he's there. Maybe they can all leave.
手を打つのがお前が及んだかもしれん。
Definitely would have been in danger. Uvo was downstairs.
Yeah.
今後のことだが、さて、それでは本題に入ろう。オークションは今夜から再開されるそうだ。場所も時間も同じだ。相手が誰だろうが舐められるわけにはいかんのだろう。重労働は盗まれた品も必ず出る。
盗まれた。先ほどお話しした通り、捕らえた大男の陰獣の一人に先を越されて盗んでいないと言っていましたが。
まあ、そうだったね。陰獣は全員やられたらしい。国語では遺体を回収したそうだ。残る一人が運搬役をやってるフクロウってやつだな。
They captured him and tortured him into giving it to them.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm just reminding you, because it's been a couple weeks.
能力の持ち主がいれば拷問の必要すらないからな。フクロウが運び出した競売品は旅団に渡ったものと見ている。
And
で、
he's gonna try to get it back.
陰獣旅団の始末をプロに依頼した。
プロ？
俺たちマフィアにとって殺しとは威嚇の手段であって専門分野。
Professionals.
連中が相手なら専門家に任せた方が確かに手っ取り早い。俺たちが何もしなくてもそいつらが旅団を潰してくれるだろう。だがこれはコミュニティに
Professionals.
Yeah.
何もこれそこでだクラピカ。その殺し屋のチームに参加してもらいたい。
I mean, he already took down one of them.
鎖野郎の方はうまくやれ。
分かってるよ。
どうする？何度も
I don't know what they're gonna do.
Shit's really like
It's heating up.
it's just getting complicated now that now KILLUA's
Yeah.
dad and granddad are getting involved.
Yeah, and then Kilo's probably gonna run into them, and like, it's just a whole thing.
絶対奴らに見つかっちゃいけない。
They're gonna follow them.
絶を使う。
Yeah, so maybe you should stay behind.
ゴン、二つ約束を守れ。奴らの姿を見られたら尾行は即中止。速やかに場を離れる。それ以外も俺がこれ以上追跡不可能中止。いいな。
And you should promise me that you will not get carried away.
もちろんバイブ設定の尾行の経験なんてないよな。
Well,
In the
actually,
hunter exam, yeah.
マジ？バレずにか？
丸一日くらいくっついてたかな。
He didn't even know what he was doing at that point.
なんと。
Just seemed like I should.
I love it, so he's just like-
じゃあ行くぜ。
they're gonna follow these motherfuckers.
Okay.
絶を使っていればめったなことじゃ見つからないよ。でも奴ら常に尾行を警戒してるから油断すんなよ。
キラーも気をつけて。
ったく 何が気をつけてだよ。こっちは奴らの変化を認めるのに神経すり減らしてるっつうのに。奴らが俺たちの位置に気づけば行動のどこかに変化が生じる。どんなに隠そうとしてもぎこちなさが顔や仕草に必ず現れる。こちとら3つの時
I like them like
Are
crawling
you
on
reading
the-
this?
こちとら3つの時からずっと
Sometimes
命を
three.
させられていたんだ。毛な真似は絶対にしない。
つけられてる。
おそらく尻尾をつかませねえ。
かなりの使い手だね。
That's the thing, when you're that good, you don't, it's not just like you sensing their nen, it's also just your like real world senses, like how if you were just a person and you could tell that someone was following you.
大したやつらだ。尻尾をつかませねえ。
かなりの使い手だね。
やばい。どんどん人気のない方へ移動してる。さすがにもう尾行してることはバレてるかもな。これは罠か。いや、絶対に位置までは悟られていない。まだバレてなくてアジトに戻るのかもしれない。の尾行は大成功。罠かアジトか、どっちだ。罠なら即脱出、アジトならもう少し追う。奴らの態度に不自然なとこはない。続行だ。
誘いに乗ってこないね。
多分鎖野郎じゃないかも。
なんで？
I thought when they were alone in the middle of nowhere, just
だが
attack them.
鎖野郎はおそらく一人で。奴はノストラードファミリーの人間なわけだろう。にもかかわらずウボとは一対一で戦ってる節がある。マフィア側に全く動きがねえからな。組が関わってれば生死を頼る手段で俺たちへの脅しに使われる。死んでればとっくにネット上にさらされてるかねってことは、鎖野郎が一人でウボを倒し、しかも組に報告してねって。組に養われてるやつが組抜きで動いてる理由ってのは一体何だ。多分支援だ。
多分とかおそらくとか多くない？
Making a lot of guesses here.
鎖野郎は単独犯で今俺たちを追ってる奴らとは違う。
なんか穴がボコボコの理論だけど。
じゃあおめえはどう思うんだよ。
そうだね。この追跡者も鎖野郎と関わりがあると思うけどね。
勘か？
勘だ。
たくよ。
Good intuition.
どうキルは。
待ち合わせか俺たちを誘ってるかどっちかだな。
尾行はバレてんの。
五分五分だな。でも位置はバレてねえよ。誘いだとしたら俺たちがどこにいる。
姿を見せろって言いたいわけさ。
どうする。
待ち合わせの可能性もある。動かず様子を見よう。
ゴン一度切るぞ。
注意して見てろ。奴らの顔や仕草に少しでも違和感を感じたらすぐ逃げるぞ。
携帯鳴らしたら速攻脱出だ。いいな。
わかった。
フィンクスだ。
おう、なんだよ。
どんな様子かと思って。それじゃあいい情報を教えようか。
ん？どういうことだ。
Shit, we don't get to know. Whoa. Oh my god! Oh my. Oh!
全ては布石か。
No. This guy is fast.
左手一本で。
よ
Wow.
う、団長と一緒にお出かけじゃなかったのか。
ここ4階だぞ。
敵を騙すにはまず味方からだそうだ。
また団長にしてやられたよ。
20尾行。ヒゲと女には知らされてなかったのか。やられた。
さて兄ちゃん、いくつか聞きてえことがあるんだが。
もうや、鎖野郎って知ってる？
鎖を使う念能力者のことよ。
Well, he doesn't know what kurapika uses.
知らないよ。俺たちは自分の意志でお前たちを追ってたんだ。一瞬でいい。隙があれば逃げ出せる。
だそうね。とぼけてんなら大したね。
She can tell lies
調
somehow.
べようか。
問い1、なぜ俺たちをつけた？簡潔に述べよ
下手な嘘は逆効果だな。
There was a bounty on you.
あんたたちに莫大な懸賞金をかけてるあんたたちの居場所を教えただけで大金をくれるっていうサイトもいくつかある。
問い2、誰に習った？
尾行っていうか絶っていう気配を消す技なんだ。念能力のプロのハンター目指してるから。
誰に習った？
人間流の師範代だよ。
Shingenri. Oh, he dropped it. He dropped the name.
鎖を使う念能力者を知ってるか？
鎖？
具現化系か操作系の使い手だ。
お前の師匠ってのが右手を束ね
I love how they actually have no idea what they're talking about, but they do know him.
Or it's him. They don't know. They have no
俺
idea.
の師匠は強化系だし。
じゃあ最後の質問だ。ラストは2択だ。よく考えて選びな。今死ぬか後で死ぬかどっちがいい
？3秒以内に答えよ。
That's a terrifying question.
Yeah. Shit.
無駄よ。下手な真似しないで。分かったわ。今行く。もうや、お友達はおとなしく捕まったわ。
Later. Later.
Wow.
I love that. We'll just watch the rest of it. But I just want to say, I love that question to end that whole. We'll talk about that after. That I just love the question. Do you want to die now or later? Because we know what happens if you want to die later with what happened to the owl
Yeah.
and shit. There's Phaeton who will torture you, the likes of which you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's my favorite scene, possibly the whole fucking show.
何度聞かれても同じだよ。
じゃああんたはどう？心当たりはない？アジトへようこそ。
Straight.
そこはまさしく
You gonna notice?
団のアジトだった。二人の緊張は今極限まで高まっていた。
Who else is there?
Hisoka? Yeah, I know. That's why I said, are they gonna notice? Sitting right there.
That's one of the best episodes in the whole fucking show.
It was really good.
I like that even more. Hang on, let's watch the Hunterpedia. But I like that even more than the Uvo fight personally. Yeah, I like that more than the Uvo fight personally. That I remember. I was sitting in my dorm room, my apartment, my first apartment, and I had just picked up watching the show again. I dropped it after the KILLUA arc, or like stopped watching for some time because I was watching in dub and I was waiting for more episodes because I watched this part for the first time in dub. And I was sitting on my bed in like my tiny apartment, and I had a roommate, so in like a wall over, so I had like my wireless headphones on. I had like this whole setup to go, like, cause I brought all the shit that I had, and I had a really nice setup to be in like such a small dorm, and it was perfect for watching shows. And I was just sitting there, and it was all quiet. I had been binging like 10 or 20 episodes that night, and I was just sitting there. I was like, holy fuck, like the whole time. Something about it, like just curled up in the corner, like soaking in every second of it. And when the perspective just like
That was
goes on their
crazy.
eyes,
I love that.
like I love how when it's zooming in on Nobunaga and he's on the phone, it's like shaking like it's their perspective, and then it zooms in more, and then Nobunaga looks up at you, and then it's just like the tension is built so well in that scene.
That's awesome.
I love that so much.
And I love that they just immediately get dunked on. They don't even stand a chance.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's awesome too, because we just watched Kurapika be the most badass dude
It's
in
so
the entire
well
planet.
set up.
And he's so awesome. And you're like, and
We know they're not that
We know
powerful.
that they're not as powerful, but we see now just the difference between them and Kurapika. They've had the same amount of time, but these guys have been fucking around. They didn't, they hung out on an island, and Kurapika was like meticulously planning out every possible situation and how he can defeat people that were way stronger than him. So that's what I really love about this. Like, we have the four main characters. Leorio,
kind of
barely knows the basics. He's a great scam artist and
street smart.
And he's good at what he does, but he doesn't have super high ambitions to be a hunter per se, because he wants to help people and be a doctor. Like that's the goal. And obviously whoever his teacher was kind of bad.
I get the I'm not even sure if he had a teacher.
Or he just he figured it out himself.
He clearly heard about Nen, because people develop Nen and don't know what Nen is, but he knew what Nen, he had heard of Nen, and he had heard of Ren, I think, or Ten, I forget which one, but he hadn't heard all the major principles, so he either got drunk with somebody who knew about it, or something, I just don't know how he would have known. One thing I want to point your attention to, watch the difference between how Gon and Killua step away here. There's a couple subtle differences that I'll point out to you. I just want you to watch it again. So with Gon, there was a crazy explosion because he was
using.
He was just jumping away, but it's a difference. It's a subtle character difference because Gon is just running.
Yeah.
Killua is an assassin.
Yeah.
So
we
hear the sound for our effect, but he's not making that kind of a sound. He's way more.
And also
silent.
Yeah, Gon might be using his enhancer abilities to enhance his legs.
I think it's just possibly, but they jump the same way. I think it's just that Killua has been trained to tail people. So, and if you look, I think if I'm right, when Killua's running after them, when Killua's running on the roof, he doesn't make any sound.
Yeah.
His footsteps make zero sound.
Gon is making so much noise.
You can listen when he's running and he's talking to himself. There's no noise. Other than the music. You can hear their footsteps. Nothing.
Yeah.
Completely silent.
I did notice that, and then when we saw Gon running, you could hear his little footsteps.
But one thing I love, this is so set up because you're right. They do the uvogin fight before this, right? Because it makes sense narratively because they want to draw out the chain user. That's what they're trying to do, or get information or something.
Yeah.
But so it works because it flows perfectly. There's not this situation is not created out of convenience to have a conflict between the characters. It's a one thing after another, characters responding with distant half information and their own intuition, and they're discussing probability because Nobunaga's coming up with all of these probable causes and things and all these links to stuff, and then we have Machi who's the woman's intuition. She's the other side, the other a more of a feeler type person. So we have that thing, but they're thinking, they're going through their head of all the reasons why what could be happening. But yeah, because we saw how powerful Uvo was and Kurapika was, and we know how powerful Gon and Killua are based on the previous arc we had of them training. It's a perfect, the power scaling is perfectly in line, and it feels completely natural, and everybody, even though, say if you were to compare it to, say, Naruto power scaling, as we often do, it's it's a lot more crushed. There's not people setting off nukes. I mean, Uvo technically set off a nuke, but not at the scale of tailed beasts in Naruto.
Yeah, it's not you can't destroy an entire country with
your
power.
So the power scaling is, there's a big distance between them, but it's not so outlandish that it becomes out of control and ridiculous, because we saw somebody who did set off nukes get completely outsmarted by somebody who could not have that destructive level of power. And then we see two of them each on one of them. So well done. And they remind us of what happened with Gon. So the whole conversation with Leorio, Kurapika, or not, Leorio, Killua, and Gon, they're talking about it, and they're just oh, we can take him. Can we take him? That's a conversation about power scaling. And then it's picture two Hisokas. Oh yeah, I tailed Hisoka once.
Yeah.
And what happened there? I was hunting him, but a hunter was hunting the hunter. That's
what I was just gonna say.
Exactly. So they put that seed in your head before that even happens.
Yeah, that I was just gonna say exactly that they were so focused on what they were doing that they weren't paying attention, that they were also being followed. And because they're also smart, the Phantom Troupe, they didn't tell the people that were they just used them as bait and didn't tell them, so they wouldn't change their behavior at all, so they could keep tracing them until they got there into the opportune location. It's so good. And I also love that they don't know that Kurapika uses chains.
Yes.
So they seriously are so confused and are just like, I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. So they don't have to lie, but they don't know, but they do know him. So the girl is right that she feels that they're connected
There's
somehow.
some kind of a connection.
But they don't know that. Like, I love, it really like stacked up really nicely.
This like kind of complicated plot threads intersecting and like ships passing in the night while simultaneously crossing each other's paths.
Yeah.
Like, is why this is a lot of people's favorite arc in the series, because it's so well everything's so well set up. The characters are all super likable. Even the most evil motherfuckers are super likable. And everything about this is so well set up. And this episode is a perfect example of that. I will never get over KILLUA trying to escape.
Yeah.
I want to watch that again. And then they show the real speed. And it's like, holy shit!
And his eyes are just like, he's not even having that much of a problem keeping up too.
And then the distraction, like all these consecutive actions that that have a flow to them. It's like KILLUA's movement is like an example of how the plot is going. It all makes sense. It's all flowing good. And then he like pushes the limits of his body like he was trained to do. How he like made his hand knives and shit. And then he like, it's not a small thing to rip out of his grasp. He has horrible burns on his skin from the friction of that. Like it's visceral, it's physical, and it's like dynamic. You know, you really feel the impact of everything. And once again, because the show is so it has such a consistent level of quality. When things like this happen, you can tell there's like a higher frame count, but it feels so consistent with the rest of the show that these unexpected moments aren't telegraphed by like the upgraded animation. Because everything is so consistent, these like oh shit moments like can really surprise you. But if you're paying attention at all to the animation in a lot of other shows, they
you're like, oh, this is gonna be a big episode from like the first scene.
But other than this looks like a completely normal episode. But they also build the tension with not only just the tailing the whole time, but they cut in a little bit of a comedic relief with Neon and her dad talking, and just like the silliness of the other guy's face is like, oh, what the fuck is going on? I hate this bitch. She's so evil. I can't believe I'm working for her. Even these people who are like mafia, like mercenaries, basically, like they're willing to do anything to make money. They're not the best people, but they recognize that there's something disturbing about Neon, and they're like
spoiled brat who likes to collect like human remains.
Yeah,
like,
but they're really like kind of disgusted and like cringing at her when she's talking, because it's like, oh, Dad, what the hell's going on? They're just like, what the fuck is happening? Like you could even like they're not morally good people, but there's a little bit of spite that they are working for this person, you know what I mean? Like, it's a subtle thing, but it's there. But there's that little bit of like comic relief, but there's still some cool shit there. And then it drives home like the seriousness of this conflict when we see that Zeno and Silva are being hired both. After we just learned
said that he wasn't
that
gonna do
Silva said he would never do this.
That's the thing. He said it's not worth the money, so potentially the mafia has like offered an insanely ridiculous amount of money for this job.
So again, setting the stakes for how powerful the Phantom Troupe is, how big of a deal this is for everybody. It sets the stakes higher, but but it doesn't. It's like a good way to set the stakes higher and set expectations higher without again, a lot of shows when they do this, they want to have this effect. What they do is they try to fit a square peg into a round hole. They change the logic of their world. They try to up the stakes of the conflict in a way that doesn't make sense, or they up the power scaling and and introduce a character that's super more powerful. But instead what they do is they draw from a backlog of characters that was already established to be far more powerful than we could even comprehend at that moment. And we've learned stuff since then that brings their power level into a greater perspective. So, like, we already knew that Silva and Zeno were probably a couple of the strongest people we knew. But since that was before we learned about Nen. Now we know about Nen. What the fuck do they do? What's their power type? Like, what do they do? How powerful are they with this new context that we've discovered? And adding them to the mix after KILLUA said, my dad said not to mess with the Phantom Troop. He laid down the law in our household that nobody would do that. For him to go back on, including himself, to go back on that with his, and he brings, or I don't know who's the head of the house. I think Silva's the head. Yeah. He and his dad go together. Yeah. Like, what more do you need to get like super hype about this arc right before we're about to tail the people that they were hired to fuck with? Like, and so like everything is, this episode is so well crafted. It's arcs of buildup. It's so much character interaction. It's like visual storytelling and visual character development and action, like with the way KILLUA moves and stuff in comparison to GON. Like KILLUA's movements wouldn't mean anything if GON wasn't there tailing with him. Yeah. But the fact that GON, we see how GON's movement is in these subtle little things, like how he steps away, how he doesn't make sound when he moves, that wouldn't mean anything. But because we have GON, it does mean something. And it's like so much is layered to make this such a good episode. It's legitimately is probably my favorite episode in the whole show. There are a couple that are rank that highly as well, obviously, but just it's rare that you get this like crazy setup and like and because like I've been saying, it all gets delivered on. It's all for something. It all leads somewhere. It's not like, oh, we're building up this and then whatever, they pull the rug out from under you and it's just some bullshit.
I also like how the actual confrontation was not very long. Like, from when that it actually went into motion, they just got defeated immediately. Yeah. And then got brought back, and now they're gonna see Hisoka and be like, what the fuck? Because
that's something that a lot of shonen do, where they set up these conflicts
and then drag out
the fight, and then it's like, well, then the villains aren't as strong as you said, because if our plebe fucking main characters draw them out in a fight, then they're not powerful. Like, and then later, that's shonen writing, where they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have the big fight, but they want to build up their villains as way more powerful than the main characters, but they also want to make the characters shine. They want to have a big climactic battle every single time there's a conflict. But in doing this, it stays consistent with all the buildup we just fought so hard to establish with all of the shit that I just talked about. It means so much.
It also allows the villains to sort of hold true to their villainness, and like follow through on their actions, because a lot of times you have like the I want to kill him personally type of thing, and then the main character keeps escaping from one way or another against a way more powerful villain because of one thing or another, that they're so dramatic and they're so weak, so they have them in their grasp, but then something happens and they get away, or they just let them go and they're like, I wasn't even using my full power, because you know that the next time it has to be a struggle again, but the main character is gonna level up, and it won't be a struggle if they kind of already almost defeated them the first time.
Exactly.
So then you have it's this weird thing where you have to like kind of like write a weird excuse, or like just make the villain very dramatic.
It's having your cake and having your cake and eating it too. It leads to so much bullshit in shonen.
You already have Hisoka, but his whole thing is very well established that he doesn't want to fight someone to the death until it's worthwhile.
They're ripened,
But if you make every villain like that, then it's pointless, because then there's no fear, there's no
It's just an excuse for the main characters to get out of
silly
shit,
nonsense. So instead, you have these guys, and it's their job. They wanted to capture them, so they just captured them, and it wasn't a problem.
And the fear is there as well, because they're not looking for the main characters. That's something that a lot of shonen gets wrong too, is they focus the series way too much on the main characters all the time. It's always there's always like a cosmic reason why fate is like looking down on this encounter.
And then that's the other thing, is when you have either a smaller cast of main characters, or they're all always together, or like just a different structure to that, then you have people, like, you have to introduce a character that's just going to be there for the certain arc to like to be that like other person that then like gets the main characters involved. You know what I mean? Instead, Kurapika is a main character, but he's off doing his own thing. He has not been in touch with them, and like that. But they're still getting brought in of their own accord, not directly tied to him. So you know what I mean?
It's good writing you're right. It's like characters having different goals and that manifesting the stories. Like it's the intersection of characters like wants and needs is like they have something they want to achieve. There's a cross point, and that's what we're dealing with here, where there's multiple different factions and groups of people and people in general just crossing purposes here. So yeah, it's so well set up, and then to end it off with they are in the Phantom Truth's hideout, and you see fucking Hisoka in the corner. What's that gonna be like? They're brought into the lion's den. Our main characters, we don't know what the fuck is gonna happen. And what I was gonna say was, because they're not the focus here, they are in danger. They're the main characters, so who knows like how badly this is gonna turn out for them, because you know there's always an element of plot armor, but you never know. And the fact that you never know is interesting, because they're not after them, so they're disposable. The Phantom Troupe doesn't give a fuck about these two. They're just random kids to them, and that means a lot more for the stakes of the conflict, because they're disposable. You can kill them easily.
The only thing is that Hisoka Gon is not disposable to him.
But how not disposable?
But how not disposable when he's trying to maintain his status in this group so that he can fight the guy, not just the kid who will be powerful one day, but the guy who's
like
already very powerful.
The most badass motherfucker in the world.
So yeah, I think we should just move on to the next one. But
yeah, I really wanted to highlight all the reasons why this is good, and there's still reasons that I didn't even get to. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe. Check out Patreon for the uncut reaction to this, and to get at least a week ahead. See the next episode right now. Hope you enjoy. Most of all, I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay.
Bye-bye.